Okay, well, sorry, Tapua Chadamalo hates hot potato. Hamavichai the revolution happened. Bishnos Atishim in the 90s, not so long ago. Shmitas Tavshin Nandala, 93, 94. Hoysa the Kudas Mifneb, and okay, Sochanusa Shmita Charadis, it was a turning point in terms of the the consumers of the Haredi Shmita. And about kashrus and Am Yisrael in general. In the 80s, Chater bells, Shemerkazab Yerushalayim, Parashim Mikuba Kashrus Sheda Haredis. That I remember very well. The bell started its own Hechsher Badatz, V'Kim Badatz Mishlam Mishem Marziki Hadas, Malach Sheikos Eida Behelam, a move which hit the Eida Haredis with shock. The Garma Chemes Olam Olam Chasidim caused the world war in the Hasidic world. Because bells used to be part of the Eida Haredis. They stopped. They actually became more part of the Aguda after that. Rav Yosef Efrati, who was, as you know, Rav Yoshev's right-hand man, Rav Posek Yisham Mumche B'tchum Kashrus, Sha'ish Sadosh Rav Yoshev. He was a Yerushalmi Posek and an expert in Kashrus, and a person who was very close to one of the inner circle of Rav Yoshev. Munal Rosh HaMachlokol Mitzvosas L'Esparsh Rabbanut Yerushalayim. He was appointed to head the division for mitzvos having to do with the halachas B'Eretz Yisrael and the rabbinate of Yerushalayim. Even though Rav Efrati went to Kerbi Avna, went to Hesder Yeshiva, nevertheless, his family was Belzer Hasidim from way back, and he became very close to Belz. Ukama Badata Sfaradia Rishon, the Beit Zion. I did not know that he made the first Sfardi Badatz. Brashuto, Shochacham Shalom Cohen, who's now the head of Shas. Upikucho Shel Rav Shlomo Machpud. Now, Rabbi Machpud's Heksher is the one Sfardi Heksher which Lithuanian Yeshiva world accepts as legit. They don't accept Rabbi Obadiah's Heksher. Reasons I don't know really why, but they do accept Rav Machpud, who is a Kochav Oleh Bitchum HaKashrus, a rising star in the world of kashrus. Maybe you'll get someday a star in Hollywood. Anyway, Shazab Lomikpar, who just recently has left as Marechas HaKashrus Rav Lando, the kashrus of Rabbi Lando from Nebra. Abadat Litai, Sheris Israel, B'chasisot Rav Shach, so Lithuanian Badat, Rashus Rav Chaim Shol Karelitz, Bikesh Lachlis Rega B'tchum HaShmita. They tried to put their foot into the area of Shmita, Ulager to challenge the Shmita Sachasidim, Bashluka Bnei Braki, to challenge the control of the Chasidim in the Bnei Brak market. Hatzirim Hischamamu Al Akabim. The younger rabbis got heated up on the battle lines, and the marketplace became reorganized. I Ben Shalosh. I was 3 years old. I ever wrote this article. Mori Varabi Avi, when my father, Ponala Rav Efrati, went to Rav Efrati B'tzil Kimas HaMachsan HaShmita Harishon B'Yisrael. He suggested putting together the first Shemitah warehouse in Israel. Shemitah warehouse, I think, is like a very cheap supermarket. Together with the families of the Yerushalmi families of vegetable sellers, Rechimi and Sharon. Machsan Shemitah said this Shemitah warehouse, he basically gathering it, Totzeres Chakla'is, the agricultural produce, Miasros, Chakla'im, of tens of farmers, Shegilu Peres Rokos Ba'arava Hadromis, who grew fruit and vegetables in the southern Arava, which means in the area of the Negev, Sheta Shemibchina Hilchat South Negev, Shebchina Hilchatis Einonech Shav Chilak Meretz Yisrael. This is an area which is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael. So those Baluf Chaklim Sheinam Yehudim. So I guess also besides the fact it's not Eretz Yisrael, they added on to the mix that the owners were not Jewish. Ma'at matzah menutak. No, these are separate things. So they put together a bunch of different sources. One source is that the Jewish farmers who farm beyond the boundaries of what's considered to be Eretz Yisrael and Halacha. Then they used also some farms which are owned by non-Jews. And ma'at matzah menutak, I'm not sure what that means. It's like a separate platform. Stuff which came from Europe. After they received a official license as Shemittah wholesalers from the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, he started with Badat Chasidish bells, the Beitzil Sfaradi, Sherisol Litai, all these Badatzim got together, Yachad with Rabbanut here in Netanya, together with Rabbanut of Netanya, Vakam Rabbanim, Gufei Kashrut, Nosafim, and several other rabbis and kashrus agencies. This included setting up mashgichim who would be agreeable to all the kashrus bodies. An agreement on a common merchandise. All the vegetables would be put in one warehouse. So I was wrong before. I said it was like a big supermarket. No, it was indeed a wholesaler. So it was a unified wholesaler from which everything was sent out to all the Shemitah points in Israel. This agreement was a direct competition to the hegemony, the monopoly of kashrus of the Eda, Rav Landa, Rav Nissen Karelis. And the war on the heart of the customers began. The and in several months, the face of Shemitah and Am Yisrael changed. What hitherto were tens of stores which were selling Shemitah produce in Yerushalayim Nebrak. In Israel that year, there were registered with 200 the Shemitah mitferia ba'leilat. Obviously, this is a quantum leap in the availability of Shemitah produce. 120 and 120 of those 200 stores got their supplies from the new warehouse. Which smote its competitors. The farmers, the vegetable dealers, kashrus bodies, and the customers, they understood, a new era has begun. From a unique halachic chumrah, which was difficult and forgotten, except for several closed groups. The Haredi Shemittah became a hot potato. Shemittah Tavshin Nun Dalet in 1994. Havchal in Bukeres Yidua Gam HaShita HaChatis Shel Matzah Menutak. Oh, now he explains it. Matzah Menutak is hydroponics, right? It's a platform which is severed from the ground. Vegetables grow off the ground. They're not shot to any mitzvah sakui forest. This severed platform gave a halachic solution for vegetables which are grown only for Jews, and among the other great thing hydroponics accomplished is close to low to aim. Vegetables which are bug free because they grow close to the ground, so no bugs got in. Shemittah of 1994 was the independence year of the Haredi customer of Shemittah. Shemittah Abba, Shemittah's Tavshin Samech Aleph, till by the next Shemittah, the major kashrus bodies and the wholesalers understood, the central wholesalers understood, you gotta get organized this time. appropriately. In the meantime, they have set up several networks of distribution, large networks of distribution networks for the Haredi sector. He's Basesa Badata Sfaradi Avilo Beis Yosef, the great Sfaradi Badats of Rav Avadia, the Beis Yosef was set up with Badash Shmita Merkazis, and a central Vada Shmita was set up for Shasush Rav Avadia Yosef, with Shituf Rabbanei Chabad. So it was another new boy on the block. The Clash Nas 2000, Fayul Maun Esinton Rishonim. There are more than 20 authorities. Sheis Yamru, which took the initiative, was Sapek Skoila Shmita Haredis to supply produce for the Haredi Shmita. 20 major agencies. Zos Lumas Chamisha Shisha, but Shmita as opposed to 5 or 6 in the prior Shmita. Imra Buika, he gam the Tila, but this is like a .com bubble, right? When there's so many, some people fell. The Garmim Rabim and many people with interest, you see the home lost a tremendous amount of money. Plus 2 regal, and they went bankrupt in Holocaust of Shmita during that Shmita. But that's in terms of the seller. However, the Haredi customer, on the other hand, he learned to demand and receive normal prices, quality produce, which was varied and readily available. This picture of Avadia. You almost don't feel that Shmita Armuzel is that going to be Nebrak, the buyers in Nebrak say. And our farmers, on the other hand, said ironically, once upon a time you worked 6 years and rested during Shmita. Now you work in Shmita as you have to. We can make no money for the other 6 years to take the rest of the other 6 years. Okay. Shmita's Tavshin Samchav 2001. Nechtam Mishnah's came in Marashusa Palestinians, but Gaza. There was an agreement made with the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, Lachamas Maksam Shmitam Yuchat, for a special Shemitah warehouse. Lacham Mivgashis came in Tochei Gaza. After a meeting which took place within Gaza, between tens of Haredi rabbis, the Bechirei Rishus, Arafat, and the leaders of the Palestinian Authority and the people of Arafat, who was, of course, then in charge of both the West Bank and Gaza. As came local Baba the Palestinians didn't fulfill their side of the bargain. Shmita's Klashina is a place of Zug Shagam El Sabbath Agos Optias Chutzlaris. It put in the option chutz. Now I want to point out, we're going to get to that the next stage. The Datim Lumim, the religious Zionists, they don't like the chutzlaris option. They don't like the Arab option. They don't like the chutzlaris option. So actually, they come out having a far less availability and a far less possibility to keep Shemitah properly, because they dafka want to use Jewish produce. I think we're going to get that when we get to Otzar Based. But in the meantime, the chutzlaris option, Sheyamim Te'apov Merkazis became more and more essential over time. Until that Shemitah, they imported during Shemitah vegetables. Because mostly potatoes, gezer, carrots, batzal, and onions made ropa from Europe, made by Holland, mostly by Holland. The tzad to tzerish machine Israel, along with produce from areas in Israel, which are not required to keep Shemitah according to halachic boundaries. Oh, I did not know that. And that year, the Jewish farmers, the Israeli farmers, started farming in Jordan. Because now there was a peace treaty in Jordan, which was in 1994. So they brought in produce from Jordan. That became the most preferred by the Haredi poskim because Yerushalayim, especially Yerushalayim. Have Yaakov Bloy, Echmedania Eidel Haredis, Mishkara Yerushalayim Chakimad Yudoi. I guess he was very wise. Russia Chabras Glat Alim. Glat leaves. Of course, glat really should only have to do with meat. Glat leaves obviously means that there's no bugs in the leaves. Among them, father the author. It's up to Yazoo and propose them this option. Now there's peace there. Go grow stuff for us there. The option of Otzar Basting, which we haven't really learned about yet, became more and more complicated, both from a love perspective and from a price perspective. Became much more narrow. Didn't apply to vegetables anymore, only to fruit and to wine. Whereas the Shemittah warehouse, various Shemittah warehouses, supplied to the Haredi customer, almost any fruit and vegetable he wanted, mostly from Jordan, evidently. Again, this is news to me. Shemittah till 2007, 2008. We went over 200 to 600 Shemittah points. It was difficult for most farmers and wholesalers. So the same 2 years prior to that, the Jews were evicted, transferred from Gaza, where, of course, Shemitah does not apply. And a significant portion of the branch changed the way it works. The wholesale market in Tel Aviv started breaking apart for the benefit of the market, which was actually in Srifin, which I believe is in the Golan. Also the Yerushalmi market. The cautious authorities, which at the end of the 80s were relatively young, they became giants in and of themselves. Badat Sheres Israel, the Litvish Basin, which had joined the first Shemitah warehouse in 1994. In 2001, it administered 3 independent warehouses. Okay, I guess by 2007, 2008 or more. Have a Frati Parash mi Rabbanut Yerushalayim. Frati left the rabbinate of Yerushalayim and Tukshar after a well-publicized fight with them. They came as Rabbanut Mahadrin, and he set up a Rabbanut Mahadrin. I'm not sure which. I think it's his own basin. I'm not sure. But Shlomo Machput Farbisays Kocho. Shabbadatz Yoradeh Rashuto. Rabbi Shlomo Machput went independent with his own badatz. Haida Haredi Sechzil Atzmat Dominanti, the Dominantius, the Shuk Yerushalayim, Shemitah Yerushalmi. The Eida Haredis got back the dominant position in the Shemitah market in Yerushalayim. Kashus Avram Rubin, who's from Rehovot. Badatz Chuk Chazam Sofer. The Q Machzei Shemitah Atzman, they set their own independent Shemitah warehouses. Miyala Kol. And above all else, the distribution networks of the great Haredi distribution networks, which in the previous Shemitah tried out. They were kind of experimenting there. We became now central players. So after the great breach in 1994, and the explosion showed Tavshin Samachal in 2001. Shemittah Tavshin Samaches, Shemittah Tuzai, it's a Shnas Haizum. Who's here, which is called Book of Balance. The Drum Mizrach Yarden in southeast Jordan, commonly crossed also Shemittah, there arose for that Shemittah. Samach Laya Ayaraha Beduis El Al Kabira, next to the Bedouin village of Al Kabira. Ayeres Hashmitah HaYisrael Risa Shina, the first Israeli Shemitah city in Jordan. Liyamim Yavdu Sham Chaklaim, and there eventually there would work farmers Shipunumi Gush Katif, which were relocated from Gush Katif, which is Gaza. The Tzaplitim Surim, next to Syrian refugees, Shanim Latu Mimilchemas HaZrachim, who fled from their own civil wars. Beis Knesset Rishon B'Yarden. I had no idea any of this happened. The first shul in Jordan, Tana Velio. Yachleis Mashgichei Kashus Teimanim. It was populated by Mashgichim of Yemenite Mashgichei Kashus. It's at Chasidim Yusham B'Tul Lasar, and next to Yusham Chasidim B'Tul Lasar. Hachazon said he's mashmesh milo rakav kavor sheva shanim with shmish shmitas corruption einhei. This only came to its full fruition in the Shmita of 2015, which was the last Shmita. Hineki came. The Malach Hamasurim, so we've seen several decades. So Shmitos, the essence deal, or several Shmitas to be more precise, of Chashmitas of Chaklim Charidim Hagazah Rechoka. The Shmita of the Haredi farmers became a distant legend. In this place, there was a Shmita which was city-based and mercantile. Badatzim, which floated between the offices of the Badatzim, the Chanerikos, and the vegetable bins, Osharad, which is one of the Haredi supermarkets. Okay, that's a very interesting story. I think, let's try and finish this. Okay, the Yitzchon should have said, a victory which is a loss. Maset, by the way, this thing about Jordan reminds me a little bit about Postman, except Postman I don't think was on the same scale as what happened here. The Yitzchon should have said, a victory which is a loss. Maset, in practice, as he pushed on this story is a story of a Haredi victory. In the distant days, long ago, of the Shemitah battles, one could not imagine how the huge cooperatives, the Yoshei Kibbutzei HaShomer and the heirs of the very secular Kibbutzim about Shomer HaTzair, Yavdu Katet El Katet, would work shoulder to shoulder next to farmers from religious Zionist backgrounds, in order to make a real option of the Haredi opposition to the Heter Mechira. Kayom, today, the lion's share of hotels and restaurants, frozen and fresh salads, and the major agricultural cooperatives, they're meticulous and observing al Shemitah l'chumra. They're makbid on Shemitah without Heter Mechira. But Heter Mechira, as opposed to Heter Mechira, it's a less good option. And it's like a default. So if you default down, but it's not the most economic thing to do. The approach of Rav Ovadia Yosef was very, very much a representative of this approach. When he was chief rabbi in the 70s, he said the Heter Mechira is legit. You can follow it l'chatchila. But at the beginning of the 2000s, Amar Barosh Vadat Shmita. He stood at the head of a Shmita board. Shemuchanal Chol Hesder, which was prepared for any arrangement. Hachlol Heter Mechila, but not for the Heter Mechila. But this victory of the Haredim is the loss of Shemitah. Hadimui Hatamim, this innocent image, Bidvar HaChatli of the farmer, shows Zev Sadeh who would leave his field, Magil Shana Bil Beis Medrash, and would come for a year into the Beis Medrash. Nishar B'Tchuma Agadot remains like an area of legends. HaChatli Yisraeli, the modern contemporary Jewish farmer, Nerach L'Shmitah, prepares for Shemitah, generally like a general going to war, in order to actually make the most money possible from farming in a way which would be acceptable. In the ancient days of the Shemitah battle, no, this is the same thing. This is a repeat. Just those two lines. Okay. Sipurash, and this is obviously a picture of Shemitah market. Sipurasha Shemitah Chores es Pirkei Yispakut Atibur Haredi B'Yisrael. The story of Shemitah strings together, or a better word, but I can't think of one right now, of the chapters of development of the Haredi community. Hedei Pumus Adai Morim Madon. The echoes of the distant battles still arouse arguments between the Haredim and Datiyim, Bamea 21 in the 21st century. Hazamar Moti Steinmetz, the musician Moti Steinmetz, Efika Bur Kenashis, he composed for the Kenashis Shir song Al Chaklai Haredi, about a Haredi farmer, Shemispateh, who gets seduced, Ishlamesh Beheter, to use the Heter Mechira, Merav Lo Mukar, from a non-recognized rabbi, or maybe an anonymous rabbi. Gar Sarazuta Shit Natzel, and he caused a small storm until he apologized. Evidently, the musician who made this had to apologize for this piece of music that he made. A week ago, there was a picture spread of the farmers in Shalvim, which is a religious kibbutz where the yeshiva is. Shemitah, who would leave their grounds. They're leaving their lands for Shemitah. He's not the students of the Chazon Ish of the year of the 60s. It's not clear if Bnei Brak knew where Shalvim is on the map. So it's interesting because Shalvim is as a kibbutz of Polei Aguda, and they followed the psukim of the Chazon Ish. But I guess the people who live there nowadays, they don't look like they're Chazon Ishnikim. They don't look like even though in the 60s, a lot of them looked Haredi, they don't look that way today, which is a whole separate issue. That's a Haredi, the Haredi customer, who once tasted the taste of Shemitah on his tongue, when it was defective, he only could get the defective produce. Today, all he has to choose is between different variations of kashrus. As Mekomashal and nostalgia, the place which nostalgia would take, Machlit has been taken over. Sachar Muzar, by a strange type of commerce, the karkos, we're in land, Shemutzos, the Mechira, which are set out to sell. In other words, now they sell these, as we know, these little parcels of land in order to be able to fulfill the Shemitah yourself. The farmers are going to farm, the farmers are not not farming them anyway. I guess they're farming in Jordan, but instead of real Shemitah, they make these little, business deals out of it. החברה הישראלית כולה הפכה מחברה חקלאית ואידיאולוגית, and the truth is that Israeli society in general has turned from being an agricultural and ideological society to a market society. And from an arena, a bubbling, a lively arena of ideas, to a not sure what Shemes here means, but anyway, a dispensary of products. You should choose those as Shevach. Some people say this is a good thing. You should just choose ignorance. Some say it'll be a bad thing. But in this new world, Shmita hi b'sach hakol ha'od motzar madav. Shmita is just no more than the other product on the shelf. Okay, so this is a fascinating piece, which basically tells us that how Shmita is kept has changed in the 90s, and that it's no longer such a extraordinary big deal to keep Shmita nowadays, and it requires very little Mesiras Nefesh, if any, especially for Haredim. We're going to talk about religious Zionists next time, but basically, farmers who really want to work during Shmita can work in a more way which can be mutter in Jordan and make money for keep themselves for the other 6 years. So Shmita has become big business. And the idealistic idea of resting during Shmita to go learn is something which is a historical legend at this point. Okay, that was a very interesting article. I'm going to stop recording.
I didn't even think about that